What's going on? Who had the knife? What's going on? Is someone hurt?
She's stabbing my mom.
She stabbed your mom?
Please, 251 Green Drive, let us know it's bad. Attention.
This is the voice of 13-year-old Megan Zanella. She was an ordinary girl from an ordinary home with a loving mother, a stepfather, and 2 sisters. But this 911 call was far from ordinary. It was the sound of confusion and despair as this peaceful family's life fell apart. 178 stab wounds, a foster daughter's betrayal, a quiet Ohio town rocked by an unthinkable crime. The Sabrina Zunich case seemed clear-cut at first glance, but beneath the surface, a dark web of manipulation was about to come to light. What drove this troubled teen to commit such a brutal act? The answer will challenge everything you thought you knew about family, trust, and the capacity for evil. A childhood lost. Sabrina Zunich entered the world on October 27, 1994, surrounded by chaos. Her parents were trapped in the grips of drug and alcohol addiction, creating an environment of neglect and dysfunction. In a particularly haunting instance, her father reportedly gave her vodka in a baby bottle to make her sleep. Her mother, Susan Edwards, had a long history of arrests related to theft and drugs, further exacerbating the instability in Sabrina's life. After her parents separated, Sabrina was placed in the care of her grandmother, a move that offered hope but ultimately failed to provide the stability she needed. Although her grandmother tried her best to care for Sabrina, the household was far from peaceful. Frequent police visits to address domestic issues revealed the ongoing turmoil that plagued Sabrina's upbringing. By the time she was 4 years old, she had already been diagnosed with ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. These mental health challenges were not just labels, they were reflections of the deeply rooted struggles Sabrina faced due to her chaotic environment. At school, Sabrina's behavior began to reflect her inner turmoil. Fighting and disruptive outbursts became regular occurrences, cries for help that often went unanswered. Teachers and administrators struggled to address her actions without fully understanding the emotional scars and instability that drove them. At the age of 14, Sabrina's situation reached a breaking point. The state removed her from her grandmother's care, acknowledging that the environment was not conducive to her well-being. She was placed in the Emma Cayley Receiving Home, a facility designed to provide structured behavior modification. This represented a critical turning point in Sabrina's life, a chance to redirect her path. Eventually, Sabrina was placed with the Knoefel family in July 2011. Lisa Knoefel, a social worker, and her husband Kevin, a truck driver, appeared to offer the nurturing and stability Sabrina had long been denied. Their 2 young daughters, Megan and Haley, created the image of a picture-perfect suburban family. At first, Sabrina flourished in the Knoefel household. Her academic performance improved significantly, and she achieved perfect attendance at school for the first time in her life. It seemed like she might finally escape the chaos that had defined her early years. However, tensions soon began to surface. Sabrina felt that Lisa favored her biological daughters over her, a perception that bred resentment. These feelings of exclusion and isolation planted seeds of conflict that would fester in the months to come. What began as a fresh start quickly unraveled. Beneath the surface of the Knoefel family dynamic, cracks were forming, setting the stage for events that would eventually spiral out of control. A fresh start turns dark. In July 2011, Sabrina Zunich moved into the Knoefel household, a place that initially appeared to offer the stability and support she had long been denied. Lisa Knoefel, a dedicated social worker, and her husband Kevin, a truck driver, seemed to embody suburban normalcy. Their 2 daughters, Megan and Haley, completed the picture-perfect family image. For Sabrina, this new environment provided a fresh start. At first, the positive effects on Sabrina were evident. Her grades improved dramatically, and she achieved perfect attendance at school. Lisa's professional experience with troubled youth seemed to translate well into her home life, and Sabrina thrived under her care. It seemed as though Sabrina's turbulent past might finally give way to a brighter future. However, as the months passed, tensions began to emerge. Lisa's efforts to enforce boundaries and discipline often led to arguments with Sabrina. These conflicts left Sabrina feeling isolated and increasingly unwelcome in the household. In contrast, Kevin began positioning himself as Sabrina's ally, offering her comfort and understanding. This growing bond between Kevin and Sabrina created a stark divide between Sabrina and Lisa. Friends of Sabrina started noticing changes in her relationship with Kevin. A friend, Autumn Pavlik, observed that their interactions became unsettlingly close. Kevin's inappropriate jokes and overly familiar behavior raised red flags. Witnesses would later describe an uncomfortable dynamic between the foster father and daughter, marked by boundary crossing that others found difficult to ignore. Lisa, perceptive as both a mother and a social worker, began to sense something was amiss. She noticed Kevin and Sabrina spending increasing amounts of time together, often in whispered conversations that abruptly ended when she entered the room. Lisa's instincts told her something was wrong, but her concerns were dismissed when she confronted Kevin. Meanwhile, Kevin's grooming of Sabrina intensified. He exploited her insecurities and manipulated her emotions, isolating her further from Lisa. Sabrina began to see Lisa as the source of her troubles, a perspective that Kevin carefully cultivated. His growing influence over Sabrina planted the seeds for the devastating events that would follow. What had once seemed like a hopeful new beginning was slowly unraveling. Kevin's manipulations and the rising tensions in the household turned the Knoefel family into a ticking time bomb. Manipulation takes hold. Kevin Knoeffel's growing influence over Sabrina Zunich took a disturbing and sinister turn. What began as comforting gestures soon crossed boundaries, evolving into inappropriate massages and escalating to explicit sexual acts by the spring of 2012. Their relationship, which Sabrina initially viewed as a source of support, became a web of manipulation that Kevin used to maintain control. Their connection was no longer hidden. Over 1,500 text messages between Kevin and Sabrina were later uncovered, many of them explicit. Friends noticed the inappropriate nature of their relationship, describing it as too close and unsettling. Kevin's control over Sabrina deepened as he silenced her with threats, warning that their secret would cost him his foster care license and lead to her removal from the home. For a girl who had experienced a lifetime of instability, the fear of losing the semblance of family left her feeling trapped. At the same time, tensions in the Knoefel household continued to rise. Sabrina's relationship with Lisa, already strained, deteriorated rapidly. Arguments became more frequent and heated. Lisa, perceptive and experienced in dealing with abuse cases, sensed something was wrong. Her suspicions grew as she observed the increasing time Kevin spent alone with Sabrina. She confronted Kevin directly about his behavior, but he dismissed her concerns, deflecting blame and eroding Lisa's ability to act on her instincts. Behind closed doors, Kevin's motives began to take shape. Financial greed became his ultimate driver, with life insurance policies worth $785,000 on Lisa's life, offering a chilling incentive. He planted the idea of murder in Sabrina's mind, framing Lisa as the obstacle to their future. In hushed conversations, he convinced Sabrina that Lisa's death was the solution to their problems. Kevin's manipulation reached its peak when he began discussing detailed plans for Lisa's murder. Methods ranged from hiring a hitman to using a gun, but they ultimately decided on a knife attack, a method that Kevin described in chilling detail. He coached Sabrina on where to stab Lisa and how to stage the scene as a burglary gone wrong. His ability to control Sabrina's thoughts and actions revealed the extent of his psychological grip. On the morning of the planned attack, Kevin delivered his final manipulative blow. He staged an emotional breakdown, claiming he would kill himself if Lisa lived. This calculated act of emotional coercion pushed Sabrina to agree, believing she was saving Kevin's life. By this point, Kevin's control over her was absolute, and the events that followed would reveal the devastating consequences of his manipulation. Planning murder. By October 2012, Kevin Knoeffel's plan to eliminate Lisa was firmly taking shape. Sabrina Zunich, now fully under his influence, confided in her friend Autumn Pavlik, casually asking if she knew a hitman. She said Lisa was worth more dead than alive because of her life insurance, Pavlik would later testify. This chilling request revealed how far Kevin's manipulation had gone, planting the seeds of a horrific crime. Privately, Kevin and Sabrina discussed different ways to kill Lisa. At first, they considered using a gun, debating how to muffle the sound with a pillow. Ultimately, Kevin steered Sabrina toward a knife attack, which he believed would be quieter and more effective. He provided specific instructions, detailing exactly where to stab Lisa to ensure her death. He told Sabrina to aim for the neck or between the shoulder blades if Lisa was lying down. These instructions left little doubt about the premeditated nature of the crime. Kevin used his persuasive power to manipulate Sabrina's emotions and distort her perception of reality. He assured her that, if caught, she would only serve 2 to 5 years in prison, an outright lie designed to minimize her fear of consequences. At the same time, he promised they would build a future together once Lisa was gone. For a vulnerable teenager who had been searching for stability, Kevin's words reinforced her dependency and loyalty to him, ensuring she would follow through with his plan. As the plan developed, Kevin included details to cover their tracks. He instructed Sabrina to stage the crime scene to look like a burglary gone wrong. She was told to ransack the house and steal some jewelry to create the illusion of a robbery turned homicide. This meticulous planning revealed Kevin's calculating nature as he prepared to shift suspicion away from himself. As the planned date of November 12, 2012, approached, Kevin heightened his emotional manipulation. On the morning of the attack, he staged a dramatic breakdown, telling Sabrina he would kill himself if Lisa wasn't eliminated. This calculated act of desperation left Sabrina feeling cornered, believing that committing the murder was the only way to save Kevin and preserve their imagined future. Months of manipulation, whispered promises, and lies culminated in this carefully orchestrated plan. Sabrina, just 17 years old and deeply manipulated, was now set to carry out an act of violence she could scarcely comprehend, becoming the instrument of Kevin's greed and deceit. Night of Horror. As midnight approached on November 12, 2012, the Knoefel household appeared calm. Lisa Knoefel slept peacefully, unaware of the danger that loomed. Kevin Knoefel was far away in Michigan, carefully establishing his alibi as part of his meticulously planned scheme. Sabrina Zunich, meanwhile, sat in her bedroom, pretending to work on a school project. Her mind, however, was consumed with turmoil as the weight of what Kevin had coerced her into doing pressed heavily on her. Using the excuse of needing painkillers for a headache, Sabrina made her way to Lisa's bedroom. Moments later, the silence of the night was pierced by the sounds of a violent struggle. Sabrina attacked Lisa with a 15-inch knife, stabbing her repeatedly in a fit of frenzied violence. Lisa fought back with everything she had, but Sabrina, fueled by Kevin's manipulation and her own inner turmoil, continued the attack. The brutality of the assault was horrifying. Sabrina delivered 178 stab wounds, an act of unimaginable violence that left seasoned investigators shocked. The blade bent under the force of her blows, underscoring the sheer ferocity of the attack. Lisa's cries for help echoed through the house, waking 13-year-old Megan, who grabbed the phone and called 911. "My sister is stabbing my mom," she screamed, her voice trembling with panic and disbelief. Meanwhile, 3-year-old Haley hid in a closet, too young to understand the nightmare unfolding around her. When police arrived at the scene, they were confronted with chaos and carnage. Lisa's bloodied body bore the marks of a prolonged and savage assault. Sabrina stood motionless, clutching the knife in her hand. Her wide, unfocused eyes and vacant expression suggested she was in shock, unable to fully comprehend what she had done. When questioned, she claimed to have no memory of the attack, but the physical evidence and eyewitness accounts left little doubt about what had transpired. Lisa's death shocked the quiet community, but Kevin's reaction only deepened suspicions. When he returned home the next morning, his behavior was far from that of a grieving husband. Instead of expressing anguish, he calmly questioned investigators about the specifics of the attack. His detachment and calculated demeanor stood in stark contrast to the devastation surrounding him, raising eyebrows and planting the first seeds of doubt about his role in the crime. The Knoefel home, once a symbol of suburban normalcy, was now a crime scene, a chilling reminder of the devastating consequences of Kevin's manipulation. Sabrina, trapped by his lies and coercion, had carried out an act of unimaginable violence that forever changed the lives of everyone involved. Truth emerges. In the days following Lisa Knoeffel's brutal murder, the Knoefel household became a focal point for grief and shock. Yet Kevin Knoeffel's behavior stood out as unnervingly detached. While most widowers might be consumed with sorrow, Kevin seemed preoccupied with material concerns. Within days, he began selling Lisa's belongings on Craigslist and donating others to Goodwill. This cold and calculated behavior raised eyebrows as it became clear Kevin was already focused on profiting from Lisa's death. The life insurance payouts quickly revealed Kevin's true priorities. Instead of preserving Lisa's memory or supporting his grieving daughters, Kevin embarked on a spending spree. He paid off the family's foreclosed home, bought new cars, and even installed a swimming pool in the backyard. Among his most extravagant purchases were flying lessons, a baffling indulgence given the tragedy his family had just endured. These actions painted the picture of a man more interested in financial gain than mourning. Meanwhile, Sabrina Zunich sat in a jail cell, abandoned by the man she believed cared for her. Months of silence from Kevin forced her to confront the reality of her situation. The promises he had made about their future together now felt like empty lies. Sabrina began to reflect on the events leading up to the murder, slowly realizing the extent of Kevin's manipulation. As her perspective shifted, the illusion of their relationship began to crack. This realization marked a turning point. Once willing to commit murder for Kevin, Sabrina now understood how deeply she had been used. Seeking redemption, or perhaps just relief from her guilt, she decided to cooperate with prosecutors. In exchange for leniency, she provided detailed testimony about her relationship with Kevin and his role in orchestrating Lisa's murder. Sabrina's account proved pivotal. Over 1,500 text messages between her and Kevin were uncovered, many of them sexual in nature. These messages painted a damning picture of their relationship and Kevin's manipulation. Investigators pieced together a timeline that corroborated Sabrina's claims, exposing Kevin's influence over her and his chillingly calculated plan. Kevin's carefully constructed alibi began to unravel. The life insurance policies, his behavior following Lisa's death, and Sabrina's testimony provided prosecutors with the evidence they needed to build a compelling case. Each revelation pulled another thread in the web of deceit Kevin had spun, leaving him increasingly exposed. Justice served. As the evidence against Kevin Knoefel mounted, the stage was set for a dramatic courtroom showdown. Kevin, who once exuded confidence in his manipulative abilities, now faced the full weight of the justice system. Despite the overwhelming evidence, including explicit text messages, Sabrina's testimony, and financial records, Kevin maintained his innocence, clinging desperately to his crumbling facade. The jury deliberated for 10 grueling hours, carefully weighing the damning evidence. Sabrina's testimony was particularly devastating, painting Kevin as a master manipulator who exploited her vulnerabilities for his own gain. Over 1,500 explicit text messages revealed the depth of Kevin's inappropriate relationship with Sabrina and his role in orchestrating Lisa's murder. The life insurance policies and Kevin's suspicious behavior following Lisa's death further solidified the case against him. When the verdict was announced, the courtroom was silent with anticipation. The jury found Kevin guilty on all 11 counts, including 6 counts of sexual battery, 3 counts of complicity to commit aggravated murder, and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit aggravated murder. Kevin, who had once believed he could manipulate his way to freedom, was now facing the full consequences of his actions. His impassive demeanor betrayed flickers of defeat as the weight of his convictions set in. The judge delivered a scathing assessment during sentencing, condemning Kevin for his calculated exploitation of Sabrina and his role in the brutal murder of Lisa. Kevin received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. The courtroom echoed with the finality of his punishment, a stark reminder that his greed and deceit had destroyed multiple lives. Sabrina also faced justice for her role in Lisa's murder. Unlike Kevin, she accepted responsibility for her actions, cooperating with investigators and acknowledging the gravity of her crime. Despite her remorse, the court sentenced Sabrina to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. For a young woman who had once sought stability and family, her sentence was a tragic outcome of Kevin's manipulation. Lisa's daughters, Megan and Haley, were awarded $6.2 million in civil damages. While this financial restitution could never erase their trauma, it served as an acknowledgement of the profound emotional and psychological toll they endured. The loss of their mother and the betrayal of their family's trust left scars that would remain for a lifetime. The trial and its aftermath left a lasting impact, not only on Lisa's family, but also on the broader community. Kevin's manipulations and Sabrina's actions highlighted the devastating consequences of unchecked abuse and exploitation. The courtroom had delivered justice, but the ripple effects of the tragedy would be felt for years to come. The Sabrina Zunich case brought to light the vulnerabilities of the foster care system and the devastating consequences of manipulation and exploitation. It also highlighted alarming statistics. Foster youth are 5 times more likely to report sexual abuse compared to their non-foster peers. These numbers underscore a critical need for better protections and oversight for vulnerable children. Mental health is another significant challenge for foster youth. Approximately 63% of foster children struggle with conditions like anxiety and depression, 3 times the rate of the general population. Coupled with their increased likelihood of addiction, these factors make foster children particularly susceptible to exploitation, as seen in Sabrina's tragic case. Experts have stressed the importance of comprehensive screening for foster parents to prevent such tragedies. More rigorous oversight and intervention are necessary, particularly in cases involving foster parents with troubling histories or questionable behaviors. The Sabrina Zunich case is a stark reminder of the systemic failures that allowed her placement in a household where she could be manipulated and exploited. For Lisa Knoeffel's surviving daughters, Megan and Haley, the trauma inflicted by Kevin and Sabrina's actions will likely leave a lifelong impact. Extensive psychological support is essential to help them process the loss of their mother and the betrayal within their own family. The $6.2 million in damages awarded to them, while significant, can never undo the emotional scars left by this tragedy. The case also served as a wake-up call for the broader community. It exposed the cracks in the systems designed to protect vulnerable children and emphasize the need for reform. Beyond the individual tragedy, it is a reminder of the importance of vigilance in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. In the end, the Sabrina Zunich case was not just a story of murder and betrayal. It was a testament to the destructive power of manipulation and the urgent need for systemic change. What do you think about this heartbreaking story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time on Crime Case Confidential.